hallowed minds. You're listening to BRIMBANK Live. I'm your host, Roshani, and I'm joined by Lydia and AD. Ladies, we are back. I'm so excited to be back.
Wow, I can't believe it. How long has it been?
It's actually been like a while, like a good 8-9 months. It's like a whole baby.
8-9 months?
It's been like six months. But the funny thing is, I've maintained radio host in my bio in Instagram this whole time.
Because we are. It's in our blood. It's in our hearts. So forever radio host.
Well, as you said, it has been a while since we've
How are you guys?
Yeah, good. I mean, it's been a while, so I feel like we probably need to introduce ourselves because I guess we have this whole new audience that we're chatting to. So I guess I'll go first. And I'll give a bit of an intro as to what I do, but also how I got into this radio space, because I think that the way that we all came about to be together and do shows like this together is quite special and quite unique. So I am a PhD student. I'm at Victoria University doing my doctorate in psychology. And I kind of came into this space through my research and through BRIMBANK Live, which is a project that I work on and do research and collaborate with and on as well. And so that's kind of how I came into the radio space. And the people at BRIMBANK have been super accommodating, and BRIMBANK Neighbourhood House. And we're kind of like, you can have a platform to kind of speak and collaborate and talk about things that are important to you. So that's kind of how I got into the space. And that's where I met you two beautiful ladies. So AD, do you want to give us a little bit of an intro?
Yes. So I'm a Dungwut, also known, aka AD. And I am not doing a doctorate. Really impressed by Roshani every time she says that. I do a lot of work in the community development space. I do a lot of work with youths. And I don't know, just bits and pieces here and there, emceeing and whatnot. And I also found myself in the BRIMBANK space, firstly, as a contractor doing, random projects here and there with the community. And when this opportunity came, firstly, I didn't realize I was going to be hosting. I was supposed to be in that space in a different capacity, coordinating, helping other people get into the space. And then all of a sudden I just took over. I guess. And I think I did a few shows with you, Roshani, separately, and some shows with Lydia separately. And one day we're just like, why not all of us link up and start doing this together? And it's been a beautiful friendship since. It's been a beautiful collaboration, and I've really enjoyed it. And I'm really excited to be back with you guys.
And you were the bridge between Roshani and I think, because you guys met before her and I met. And I just remember you used to always rave on about Roshani, this PhD student.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
But yeah, it's been so great. Lydia?
Yeah, my name's Lydia. I'm 25 years old. I just turned 25 in lockdown, my second time. I kept it really calm, just kick back with family. You know how it is, guys. You know how it is.
Super low-key.
Yeah. But yeah, I also function within the community development space. I think I got involved with BRIMBANK because I came in as someone who was looking to, I know I wanted to start a podcast at the time, and there was this community program running which invited anyone in the community to come through on a Monday or a Wednesday at the neighborhood house to develop a skill or like a talent of theirs. And at that point in time, I was comfortable with the conversational side of things, but not the tech side of things. So my older sister had seen this program at the house, and she was like, oh, maybe you should check this out. You could probably get some support on the tech side of things. So ended up then, that's when I met Mohammed, our OG Mohammed, and our OG Mohammed, shout out. And he's basically the one that just saw something in me and saw that, I was able to kind of just accelerate or like grow at a faster rate than I think I came in like planning to accelerate that. And then, yeah, funny enough, that pilot program begun, and then we were radio stars all of a sudden. So yeah, the rest is history. And then, and then like AD said, bits and pieces. I feel like we can all relate to that. We're just kind of doing a bit here and there and just bringing it all together eventually. But currently, I really enjoy presenting. It's my favorite thing to do.
Oh, that's amazing. And I think that with all of our stories, it kind of does really show the space that BRIMBANK give to young people. And I think that we all came in a different way, but we were all given an opportunity and a platform to be able to do this and to curate a space for us. So I think that that's really special, and it does kind of speak to the people and the leaders, particularly at BRIMBANK, Sydenham Neighbourhood House, and the work that they do in giving young people a voice. So I think that's really cool. Lydia, you mentioned that you turned 25 in lockdown again. How was that for you, and how has this lockdown experience been for you, particularly coming into this year and kind of us thinking that we're all fine and good and we've got this under control, and then having these extended lockdowns happening? How's it been for you?
Honestly speaking, I was just talking to myself like in the lead up to my birthday, because I was looking around and I could see that what happened was going to unfold. Like, I think we could feel in the atmosphere that it was getting worse. We could see by the numbers. So I kind of just started to like talk to myself and be
technical difficulties.
All good. But yeah, and I think that you know, a lot of people have kind of had 2 birthdays in lockdown. It's been difficult, and I know that it has been for Lydia, and you have all these plans, and I guess we're young and we're kind of living in our prime, and it's you know, we feel like we're missing out on time and things to do. How's it been for you, AD? Like I guess being in lockdown again, and how's it impacted your work, and I guess just like your plans for this year?
I think with lockdowns, it's not even the lockdown itself. Like, I have no issue working from home. I'm a homebody by nature. So, you know, it doesn't do much for me, but it's that option, you know, that's been taken away. The option to go and spend time with friends when you want to, option to go to a cafe when you want to. That's been the biggest thing. And I think it's also the fact that you're sitting in limbo. Like, one moment you're in the office, the next moment you're at home, and it's just that inconsistency of on and off that's really impacted me the most. Like, if it was just, we're going to be working from home from now on, then cool. If we're going to be working in the office from now on, then cool. But it's just the uncertainty all the time, and I think that messes a little bit with my productivity. It takes a while to like get back into the groove of things, starting working at home, and then all of a sudden now you're back in the office and you're trying to get into the groove of things there, and it's just never ending. And it's, I don't know what it's called. I think some people describe it as is it COVID anxiety or lockdown anxiety or something like that, where you're in this constant state of mind where you don't know what's next, and you're always planning for what's next, but you don't really know when that might happen.
That's the thing.
I think that's been the biggest issue.
And I think that you hit the nail on the head there when you said it's the inconsistency, and it's also just the unpredictability of things as well. And for a lot of people who have anxiety, the best thing for them is to plan and organize, but it's really hard to do that when we're kind of in a state where we're not quite sure. Like, we had 0 cases one day and then we went into lockdown the next. Like, absolutely crazy. Lydia, you were telling us about your...
Oh, hey guys. Sorry about that. Thanks.
So yeah, I guess like your plans and your birthday, and how you kind of had to work yourself up to kind of being okay with being back in lockdown again.
Oh yeah, it was just simple. I just had to kind of just be real with myself. Like, in the weeks leading up to my birthday, I was looking around, looking at the numbers, looking at the news, and it was pretty clear that we were going to kind of stay in this sort of lockdown like thing. Woo! So I'm just like, look, Lydia, we're living in some really like unprecedented times. Don't stress. It's not a big deal. Like, there's always another chance to like celebrate yourself. My graduation's coming up, so I feel like that's even a bigger celebration for me personally than my own birthday. So yeah, now I'm fine. If anything, I've just got the general fatigue from these lockdowns, you know? I'm just over it.
Yeah, it is really difficult. What would have been like the itinerary for your 25th if it were to go ahead? Like what did you have planned? Because 25's huge. Like that's like
I know.
quarter of a century.
Quarter of a century.
Quarter of a century, yeah. See, I wanted to do a few days. I wanted to have like a big party element. Then I wanted to have like an intimate, like close friends, a little bit of an activity sort of element. I wanted to go away potentially, like somewhere just a few hours away, rent a house, have people down there. I was just going to do a whole thing, but then I didn't even really get to think of organizing it because just it didn't seem like wise to. It was just like, it's not going to happen, Lydia. Accept it. So yeah.
That sounds amazing, and I'm sure after this, when we get back to a COVID normal, you can definitely go ahead with those plans. But yeah. I love how you have little elements, because I do that too with my birthday. Like I'll have like one day doing this and a couple of days doing this.
Yeah. Because it's my birthday the whole month. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's literally how I treat it. Every weekend is like a different group of friends, a different activity, different vibe. And it's like, when was your birthday again? 3 weeks ago, but we're still going.
Yeah, it's like,
don't worry about the day, man. It's the month.
Exactly.
If you are just tuning in, you're listening to Coloured Minds on BRIMBANK Live. I'm your host, Roshani, and I'm joined by Lydia and AD. So I guess we've kind of chatted about who we are, how we came into this space, and how we're going in this current lockdown. And I think that we can kind of turn to what we want to do with this space, which, for all of us, we have some really strong passions that kind of align and overlap, which I think is quite cool because we come from such different spaces. But I guess with this radio series that we're wanting to do is we're wanting to do a couple of episodes to touch on, I guess, a range of different topics. And that's things like gambling and talking about like the system of mental health and the medical health system and addiction. And we're looking at these things from, I guess, a cultural and racial lens. And I think that those things are important. I mean, they're important and prominent in our lives. But I think they're things that are important in a lot of other people's lives as well. And seeing those things from those lenses and understanding that each individual kind of experiences different things differently based on their positionality. And that plays a part in how they interact and engage in these systems and these conversations. So I think I just want to ask you ladies, like what is it that you feel is important and that we want to kind of chat about and speak about, and what message do we kind of want to bring out to the people listening about these kinds of systems and issues and the positionality of coming from it, from like a racial and cultural lens?
I think it's really important to speak about all kinds of topics, but from that cold, that racial, that equality perspective, because what someone or what an average Joe might experience, and someone else might experience too, might have completely different impacts, depending on who you are, where you come from, and things like that. So I think for me, maybe I'm jumping the gun a bit, but from all of the topics that we have put down to cover in the next few weeks, I think I'm really interested in talking about like the medical space, and how that differs for different people within the community in Australia anyways, and how you can find, I don't know, bouts of like neglect and things that are untoward when you really look deep into it, that other people might not really clock or might go over people's heads. And some people even feel gaslit, like they're crazy for feeling the way they feel. So I think it's really important for us to touch on it and validate a lot of people's feelings and perspectives, because a lot of people go to the doctors, like say the older generation, and they're like, I'm in a lot of pain and I've been talking to this doctor for a while, but nothing's really been happening. It must be just all doctors and how they treat all patients. But there is some sort of difference there, and there's evidence to prove it. And I think us talking about things like that really does validate a whole bunch of people that are just sitting there confused about why they're being treated differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that when you're speaking about that, it really reflects how some of these systems and spaces are not made for people like us, and they're not built around people like us. And I think that that's important because that does impact the way that we are treated when we kind of seek help, especially medical help and mental health help. And so I think it's important to highlight the stories of people, to talk about what that means and what it looks like on the ground when you are trying to navigate a space like that. And especially in the medical field, as you were saying, AD, there is such prominent evidence around, I guess, how these systems can sort of neglect people from, BIPOC people, people from cold backgrounds. And Lydia, what about you? Like, what? Because I know that you obviously have personal experiences as well. With your own kind of medical health, and how that has been, I guess, navigating these systems, and why you think it's important that we can have these discussions.
Yeah, I didn't realize how important it was until I went on someone else's podcast, the Disruption podcast, and spoke on like my back injury and just my experience with the healthcare system in Australia in general. And after I did that, like I've had a number of people approach me and say thank you because they felt prompted or encouraged to like follow up on health issues that they had that they weren't getting enough attention for, and they kind of just thought it wasn't a big deal. So yeah, that in itself proved to me that it's important to talk about this because I think we're still, like as a society, I think we're still grasping grasping and understanding around systemic, like, injustices. And so because it's so hard to kind of spot out, because they're so subtle, we don't realize that, there is room to actually live a higher quality life, or there is room to be accommodated to more in society. So I'm definitely,
we deserve it. We deserve it.
It's our human right. It's the basic human right we have.
Yeah, exactly right. So I'm excited, and it's just also important to remember that human error exists within, like that was something that I tried to highlight last year during that Women's Health Week. It's just like at the end of the day, like human error is a very real thing, and at the hands of in the medical system, we're at the hands of people who are capable of making a mistake. So it's so layered, and I think that it's really important to understand like how the complexity of of all of that when you're dealing with the healthcare system, so that you can kind of take care of your health in the best way possible. But I'm really excited about talking about anti-discrimination and just like equal opportunity, inclusion, and all of that. And I think I remember Liz, actually, shout out to Liz Gabb from BRIMBANK Council, but she said during NIDOC week, like last year, she mentioned that there's been research done that shows you're guaranteed to have a better experience in your country if you understand how the system works. Like it's just as simple as that. If you actually understand the inner workings of the system and the nuances of it, then you're in a better position to function or navigate that system so that your life is better. So if we have an opportunity to provide some sort of like education around how people can function within the system, then I'm really happy.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm excited about. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that as you were saying, we do have rights. There are particular acts in place. There are resources to kind of help prevent it and enable people to thrive in these spaces, even though these spaces can be quite violent. So I think that, it's really important that we're having these discussions, and we're going to have some amazing guests on during this series as well, who are going to chat to us about their particular perspectives in their field, how they've kind of navigated the systems, and also talk about those acts, things like, the Racial Discrimination Act, the Disability Act, things that are put in place, and that people know that they do have rights in these spaces as well. And I think it's also cool because, we are kind of talking about these things from that racial and cultural lens. And so even understanding and kind of reframing these systems as well, particularly like for the mental health system and mental health space, for third or second generation kids or third culture kids who are kind of in between two worlds of their heritage culture and also living in this country where there is kind of a prominence on mental health and seeking help, and understanding, I guess, that perhaps the ways in which different cultures may think about that, and looking at creating spaces for people who are of coloured background or BIPOC in gaining help as well, and reframing the ways that I think some particular cultures or ethnicities may look to these systems and perceive these systems as well, which I think is something that's close to all of our hearts.
Yeah. I don't know, like when I think about this radio platform, it's exciting. We can have a lot of fun. We can have a lot of laughs. But when you really think about it, it's like we have the opportunity to really make a difference in the community through education, like Lydia said earlier, through validation, and providing people with resources and things like that. So we really have an awesome opportunity and a great position to change and impact our community right now. So I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And I think that, doing things through that kind of educational lens as well, and, people being able to hear, the steps that we're giving and the resources that we have, I think is something that we really kind of want to put out there, especially in the BRIMBANK community and wider as well. And I think that, it's really important that we have this space, and we are super grateful to have this space. And of course, we're going to have laughs along the way. But can't help it. That's just us. We're comedians. But so it's just it is really important, and I'm glad that I'm sharing space with you ladies and doing this. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to BRIMBANK Live. I'm your host Roshani, and I'm joined by Lydia AD, and we are Coloured Minds. So I guess to kind of wrap up the show for today, we spoke a little bit about how discrimination can seep into systems and spaces, and how they're kind of like built into these systems and spaces, and I guess just like the normal lay response to these, because I think that sometimes we can talk about the particular acts that are in place and the particular resources that you have, but I think that everyday people and what they can do can really make a difference as well. And I think that when we talk about being anti-discriminatory, it's also about not just kind of not standing for these things, but also actively calling these things out when we see it, and I think we all as citizens have the right to do that, and to speak out. And if you see that somebody is maybe being neglected in a particular way in a community space, being able to call that out, being able to enable and help people, because I think that what goes hand in hand with equal opportunity is that idea of being anti-discriminatory as well, being anti rather than non. So I guess, what are your perspectives on I guess really pushing it and being that voice of reason for people, particularly in more of an anti-discriminatory way versus, just not perpetuating that violence yourself?
I think you said it's our right to call it out and to speak up. Not just our right, I believe it's our responsibility. And like, say someone of African descent like myself, who my community experiences a whole bunch of stuff, I can't just sit here as a victim. You know what I mean? I have a platform. I'm really grateful for all the opportunities I do have. So I feel like it's definitely my responsibility to step up and speak up. And I think as well, when people talk about anti-discrimination, racism, all of that, a lot of people think it's just a conversation to be had between the community or the marginalized, but these conversations actually have to expand to all of our allies as well, and every person in the community. We're all in this together, and some people are ignorant. Ignorance is not necessarily an excuse ever, but some people are just genuinely ignorant. They're not bad people, and sometimes they need to have that conversation, or they need to hear different perspectives to kind of clock it, and also give them the resources on how they can speak up and stand up for other people around them when they see something is not right. So this conversation can't just be in a community bubble, of us being like, yeah, this happened to me too, me too, me too. But it's for the wider community, to want to learn, I'm hoping, and want to hear more about people's perspectives and what they can do as well to help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, when you say that, everybody needs to be involved in these conversations, it's absolutely true. Like, you know, everybody needs to have a seat at the table, because everybody benefits. Like, you know, there are people, or people who are not from BIPOC communities, and they benefit from the fact that, you know, BIPOC communities do get neglected, and don't have a space and a voice. And so I think that it is really important that we have everybody, allies, people who are impacted, people who see these things occurring, leaders, all in the conversation, to make these things better.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when you look at the definition of discrimination, it's the unfair or prejudicial treatment of people and groups based on characteristics such as race, gender, age, or sexual orientation. So I feel like, just like AD was saying, this is actually, it's the injustice is actually coming from outside of our communities, if anything, you know, outside of these minority communities. So it's definitely a conversation that we all need to be having, because it's just, it's never as effective when the person or the group trying to ask for the sort of like the, you know, the leeway or the grace or whatever. Like, they shouldn't be the only ones shouting about it. Do you know what I mean? It should always be the people that are in higher positions of power. And so this definitely extends to those who don't experience as much of this discrimination in society. So yeah, like
as you were saying, Lydia, just the fact that it's those people who do have the power to, I guess, push further and do more. And so it is important that they are also leading the charge in this as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've had the pleasure of meeting some really amazing people, white people, in Melbourne here, who really understand their position. They really understand their, what is the word?
Privilege.
That's the one. They're
The big
privileged. And you know, there was a lady who said to me, sometimes people find it easier to hear these messages that we want to give out coming from like a white woman, you know, or from a white man.
Yeah.
Other people hear it or are able to hear it and digest it a lot more than someone of color coming to tell you, you're doing me wrong. So we definitely have to work together and utilize those people who want to help. And it doesn't mean, you know, if they're given a voice to talk on our behalf, that they're taking something away from us, because we're all working together. And we can't win something unless, you know, the people who are privileged also stand up and say, yo, this is not right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I read a paper the other day, and it was about, I guess, how we, or how society places people who are marginalized. And it was saying that instead of using the language of someone being marginalized, it's actually them being systematically excluded, you know, because I think that sometimes the onus always falls on BIPOC communities, and I guess oppressed groups, thinking that they put themselves in these places, but no, they're placed at the margins, and they are systematically excluded by people who do have the power. So I think that, it's really important, as you said, AD, there are people out there that are doing this work and really great allies. And so I think that, like, we are going to chat to a range of people who do this work in different fields, and hopefully, shine the light on these things, because I think the best thing for us is, you know, how do we build a space of equal opportunity? It is shining the light on these, hearing from people, hearing experiences, but also having those experiences translate into action, where you know, action is taken and people can really start to see a real difference.
And the reality is, as well, guys, is like, as much as we were saying that, you know, we need to have this, like, you know, we need to all join forces and push this thing. It's like, it's going to have to be our community who makes the most noise at the end of the day, because the system isn't benefiting us, and it's benefiting other people. So it's just one of those like harsh realities, I feel, with this particular fight. It's like, ideally, and we've been saying it would be great to have, you know, complete allyship from, you know, the rest of the world, but it's just like, it doesn't necessarily exist. And so we do have to find the energy and the strength within our communities to really, like, you know, fight this fight, sort of thing. So
yeah, but I don't think making noise has, you know, done much, unless a white person says, all right, I hear you, You know what I mean? You've convinced me.
Really? So
I'm in this high space, and I have the opportunity to open up doors. You know what I mean?
so
Like,
do you
we
think
can
the
yell and
biggest
scream.
you think the biggest shifts in I don't know, the social justice sort of world has come from what has been instigated, from white people?
No. I think our community screaming and yelling and whatnot is to convince people and to turn people into allies so that they can then open up doors. So like a CEO has the opportunity to create huge change, create huge change in an organization or a company, because potentially they've heard from, someone of color, and they've sat down and had the opportunity to talk to them. But if their minds are not changed, then nothing's really going to happen. Like, we can still keep yelling and screaming. So I think, we have to be really strategic in what we're doing and in how we're presenting it. And
That's
for
true.
me, I like to meet people one by one and we talk to people, because when you start changing people's minds slowly here and there, then they will, pass it on to the next and pass it on to the next.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I was going to say, like, I hear what you're both saying, because it is, I guess, the white allies that need to do work. It is also about communities like ours making noise, and I think there's like different cogs in the wheel of making this what
Change,
it is and creating change. So it's not just the one trajectory of these are the people that are going to save us, or these are the people, because at the end of the day, it's white people that don't know our experiences, and so we do need to be at the forefront of these these kind of pushes for change, telling our stories and highlighting our experiences. But it is also white allies being able to hear our stories and amplify those and make change in the spaces that they have power in. So I think it's a bit of everything, and I'm so excited.
We are the catalyst.
Exactly, yeah, and I'm so excited to, I guess, delve into those little spaces as well and really understand those things, because at the end of the day, it is our responsibility, as we said. No, all good. It is our responsibility and our rights to be able to do this work, as it is everybody else's.
Because I was just going to say it's really interesting, because it's almost as if we're having that conversation of trying to find a seat on the table which has already been designed and created by white people, then now we're having this conversation about how can we tap into white spaces, how can we tap into them in a sense where they understand who we are and they let us in. But then now there still needs to be more like a kind of like a dialogue alongside that, which is that we exist within this country whereby there are genuine acts and laws that protect our rights, and it's actually more so in the nuances or in the little like cracks or loopholes of our system that these things unfold, like the racism and injustice. So that if we understand how we can navigate the system, minority groups in Australia are actually in a position to create tables. So it's kind of like also that conversation as well. Like, our approach in this country would look different if we're trying to find a seat on the table which has already been created versus actually create our own table. You know what I mean? Because I believe that we're in a position and we're resourceful enough within our own communities to actually create tables now. So I feel like it's a multifaceted approach, when we're talking about building our position within this society. It's really interesting.
And you summed it up perfectly, Lydia. I think it's are we wanting to tap into those white spaces and be in those spaces that aren't designed for us, or are we going to be more empowered in creating our own spaces? And so I think that's things that we will touch on during this series. But thank you so much to you ladies and to everybody listening and tuning as well. Thank you for listening to Coloured Minds with Roshani, Lydia, and AD on BRIMBANK Live. And we cannot wait to delve into these conversations in depth and detail. But we will catch you all later.
Coloured Minds. I loved hearing.